Good afternoon.
All right, so Imran, welcome to Abu Dhabi. We are
Thank you.
so honored to have you here with us at
Such a
Shop Talk.
pleasure.
Yeah. So we're going to kick off. I expect there's exactly no one in the audience who is unfamiliar with the business of fashion, but on the off chance that there is, how would you describe the business to someone who is not in our sector?
That happens to me all the time, that I'm sitting next to someone at a dinner, and when I tell them I work in the fashion industry, if I'm in the tech world or in another serious business industry, they often kind of roll their eyes a little bit because I think the fashion industry is still not often taken very seriously as a business. But then when I start explaining that, we are a modern media company covering the $2.5 trillion fashion industry and beauty industry and luxury industry, serving paying members in 125 countries, over 120,000 members, and that our main goal is to keep that community of people engaged, informed, and frankly excited about all of the change happening in those industries, the impact that those industries have, not just as businesses, but as cultural industries. So, and then they're like, oh, okay, I get it, It's that big, the fashion industry? Yeah, it's that big.
All right, and we have promised everyone that we're going to talk about three tensions here. So the first tension that we're going to talk about is the value tension. So we're coming out of an era of price-led growth in luxury industry that has kind of plateaued, right, in recent years. So do you see the future looking quite different? Where is real growth going to come from in the luxury sector, do you think?
It's a good question. I have no crystal ball, but I would say that the era of price-led growth is most certainly over. And that actually there's a bigger issue than just kind of driving for growth. I think the luxury industry in particular has to win back trust of customers. I think there's been, over the last, say, 5 years post-COVID, with the price increases of like 60, 70, 80, 90, sometimes even 100%, people are looking at their spend now and saying, well, this product that I bought 5 years ago, or this product that I want to buy, would have cost me X 5 years ago. It's going to cost me, 2X today. That's just not adding up for a lot of people. And that's not just true for aspirational customers. I think it was Bain & Company that said 50 million aspirational customers dropped out of the luxury industry over the last few years. It's also true for the high net worth customers, the VICs, the so-called famous VICs, 2% of customers that drive something like 40 to 50% of revenue. Those people who have unlimited resources are also saying, this doesn't make sense anymore. So growth will have to come from re-engaging customers and winning back their trust. Because those customers aren't necessarily deciding between a Chanel bag and a Prada bag and a Gucci bag. They might be deciding between a Chanel bag, a luxury retreat at, Viva Meyer in Austria, or some other kind of luxury experience somewhere else. And so this idea that, fashion and luxury are this kind of contained industry is not true anymore. You really have to compete across a wide variety of sectors.
And that's actually a perfect segue to our next tension here, which is around credibility. So you mentioned sort of the alternatives, right? You can make a purchase, or as many are doing, you can have an experience, right? And that shift from products to experiences has been one of the biggest trends over the past sort of, probably 15 to 20 years at this point. How do luxury brands that have not traditionally had experiences, whether it be in the hospitality space or elsewhere, how do they translate their brands into that? Because it's a different skill set, right? Producing a handbag is quite different than producing a luxury cruise or something. You have to hire different people. Do you see consumers buying into kind of their vision for these experiences, or do you think that they're not necessarily going to have the credibility that they would have in their more traditional areas?
I think the ability to move into these different areas really comes down to two things. There is the skills question, which I'll address in a minute, but you must have the deep customer relationships, and you must have a brand that has the credibility to stretch across new experiences or categories. And for me, like a really great example is what Christian Dior has done. I was in the store actually the other night for a dinner in Paris. Their brand new, well, not brand new, but still relatively new maison in the historic 30 Avenue Montaigne, in the heart of that kind of luxury district in Paris. And that is no longer a Christian Dior store. It is a store, it's a hotel, it's a museum. There's a restaurant inside the store. It covers multiple categories. And I think, if you look at the way they've done it, they've really looked at trying to do something under the strength of the Christian Dior brand, keeping certain codes or elements that make it distinctively Christian Dior, while also really, really building in and bringing, to your point, the skills and expertise to execute well in new categories. It's not something you can just introduce without really thinking carefully about how you're going to deliver at the same level of excellence in those new categories as you do in your core original category. At a dinner in Paris the other night, I was sitting with the soon-to-be CEO of Bulgari, and she was telling me that they operate not just in jewelry, but also in home, in hotels, in a number of categories that are outside their core, and they're running all of those businesses internally, which is, I think, another lesson that you can look at both Dior and Bulgari to do. Is I think historically the brands that moved into those categories, that they would just slap their brand onto a product that was created by a third party using as licensing. And I think more and more brands are realizing that in order to execute at the level that your customer expects, and in order to retain enough control over that experience, and in order to make sure it all fits together, more and more brands are deciding to do everything in-house. That's why we're seeing more and more brands bring beauty in-house. They're really thinking, how do I make sure I keep that brand experience consistent and ensure that there's like a dialogue between all of those different things, because they shouldn't exist as silos.
Yeah, and you talked before about trust, and that's obviously another critical piece here if you're going to be going into an entirely new area, ensuring that you're bringing that brand trust along with you. So our third tension here is actually one I want to spend a little time on, which is the authority tension. So we are in an era now where kind of the tastemakers have changed quite a lot. So you're coming from a media business, but a lot of what we are hearing today is from content creators, and the search industry is being disrupted with new players. For example, Reddit playing an outsized role in search results, and how consumers are learning about both products and experiences has shifted quite a lot. How do you, as a media player, think about the influence you have in the industry, and how do you overcome that tension if you do?
Well, actually, I started as a blogger.
Okay.
Which is
so you are the tension.
what creators were once called, right?
Yep.
We were called bloggers, and then we were called influencers, and then now they're called creators.
Yep.
Ultimately, it's the same thing with different nomenclature, right? And so as someone, if I had been starting BOF today, as I did back in 2007, I probably would have started on Substack, and I probably would have had an Instagram account. Back then, I used a TypePad blog and a FeedBurner account to send an email, And I think what we are very aware of, is now BOF has been around for 19 years, is that, keeping, the original perspectives that made BOF interesting and exciting at the beginning is really, really important, and that's being able to stay true to your original voice. What I sometimes see happen after, influencers, bloggers, creators, whatever you want to call them, have been around for a while, is they get co-opted by the system, and then they get controlled by the system, and they lose the voice that originally drew interest from readers and followers of the industry. And we had this very interesting panel at BOF Voices, our flagship event in December, of some of the OG bloggers and influencers, and then some of the new ones. And we were talking about the kind of influencer industrial complex, and how brands are now coming to them with like 20-page briefs of how they want a specific individual to talk about their brand. Well, that's a surefire way of killing your influence, and if you're a brand, wasting your money. Because what I think is happening is, like, people are really interested in individual voices. They're interested in authentic, honest perspectives, and they're interested in different takes. And if, as a brand, you go to a creator and you say, we'd love for you to attend our XYZ event and create XYZ content, and these are the 16 bullet points you have to follow, and please avoid saying this, you're basically going to spend all that money to make all those influencers sound exactly the same. And the person at the receiving end of that Instagram post or TikTok reel or whatever it might be is going to sit there and go, I'm seeing all of my influencers that I follow is all posting the same thing. They know it's paid. The most important thing when you're a creator, and the most important thing as a brand that wants to work with creators, is enabling people to retain their perspectives. So, as BOF has grown beyond me, from me sitting on my sofa to a team of more than 100 people, all working hard around that mission that we discussed at the very beginning, what remains essentially true to our purpose today is to continue to retain that voice that challenged the industry to think differently, that isn't afraid to criticize the industry where we see opportunities for improvement, while also celebrating excellence and success, right? We want to be a really constructive force in our industry. What I don't like, and what I don't see BOF doing, is, and something what I think is kind of changing the discourse around fashion, is to become very negative and gossipy. There's a lot of this, like, negativity and kind of throwing stones from behind anonymous accounts, which I think, it's not very constructive as an industry, and I think our role is to remain really clear about our perspective and, to constructively challenge the industry while also enabling the industry to get better.
Last question here. As you look ahead at kind of the future of the industry, how do you see the business of fashion kind of evolving? Where do you see taking it over these next few years?
Well, clearly the locus of gravity, power, influence in our industry is shifting. It's shifting away from kind of the traditional four Western capitals, New York, London, Paris, Milan, and it's shifting to places in the global south. And that's why our team is spending a lot more time in markets like Abu Dhabi, like Dubai, like Bangkok, like Mumbai, like Sao Paulo, Hong Kong, because we just really feel that part of what's happening in the world, and I'm sure everyone was following the conversations in Davos recently, is we're moving away from this unipolar world where all of the power rests in the West, particularly in the US, and we're moving to a situation where there is a lot of dynamism, a lot of excitement, and a lot of creativity and opportunity in new markets that are not really even new anymore. They're becoming more established. And so I'm really, because we have those members in 125 countries, we have local communities that we can engage. I hope there are some BOF professional members in the audience here, but one of the reasons we're here is we want to engage with our community in different markets around the world. So we have been global from the beginning, but we want to be taking our global perspective and really making an impact in local ways with our global perspective.
Fantastic. A great place to end our conversation. So Imran, thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you to everyone for being part of our conversation today.